Welcome to the Success Talk Show, the podcast for ambitious leaders who want to get their best results and create a workplace for their teams to thrive. Each week, we share practical advice to help you accelerate your success and grow as an inspiring leader. Now, here's your host, Leadership Success Coach, Donna Sirianni.
Welcome to another episode of the Success Talk Show. This is Donna Sirianni, Leadership Success Coach and founder of Success Compass Academy. And in this episode, I'll share with you 3 specific actions that you can take to transform your personal brand while still being true to yourself. Now, before we get started, I'd like you to think about what you want to change. What is it that is so important to you that you're wondering if it's time to do a bit of a makeover on your personal brand? What's the goal that you have in mind? Is there something specifically that you want to pursue or attract? Now, recently, I was on a panel at a tech conference in Boston called LiveWorks, and I was asked the question, do you think a personal brand can change, or is it hard to change perceptions? And I want to share with you in this episode 3 steps that you can take to change your personal brand. Again, you're still going to want to be true to yourself. It needs to be authentic. But before I get into the 3 steps, if you're listening for the first time, I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. I've spent my entire career in technology, long time ago, started off as a programmer right out of college, worked my way up to senior leadership roles in technology organizations where I was managing teams spread across the US, Europe, and Asia. And my last corporate role was as chief people officer for a software company. And as much as I love championing a fantastic company culture, winning a Best Place to Work award, I was drawn to leave my corporate roles behind to become a full-time coach and consultant. So today, as both a coach and consultant, I help leaders in technology accelerate growth, both for themselves personally and for their organizations, while creating a workplace for their teams to thrive. So, just to give you a little bit of context of who I am, what I've done, before we dive into the 3 steps. So, step 1 is really to do a bit of a gap analysis. What's top of mind about you today when people think of you? This is a perfect opportunity for you to get some feedback. Now, you may have a goal. As I said, think about your goal as you go through this episode. What is it that seems to be eluding you? What's prompting you to think that your personal brand might need a bit of a makeover? Is it that there's a promotion that you're getting passed over for, or maybe you're an important decision you're trying to influence others? You want to get a more challenging assignment? What is it that you really want? Why is it important to you? And what's prompting you to think you need to make a change? Now, you'll get better results when you absolutely are aligning your actions with who you really are. So we still want to be true to yourself. But what I'm talking about here is really get to the heart of why you want to make a change. Now, your personal brand is comprised of many facets of who you are. It's what you're good at, it's your strengths, it's what your passions are, the things that you would pursue eagerly and with enthusiasm because they're so fascinating to you, you enjoy them so much. Your values, those core values, they're your code of conduct or rules for engagement, things that matter so deeply to you that they're just not negotiable. It's how you present yourself, how you interact with people. So again, your personal brand has many facets of who you are. And I am not suggesting in this episode that you're changing any of that. Your personal brand, what other people, how they see you, what's top of mind about you, that may have gotten clouded. And as I think about this topic, I was laughing a minute ago because I was thinking about a movie that came to mind as I was about to record this episode. Have you ever seen the movie with Ben Stiller called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty? Now, his character, he loved and was passionate about adventurous travel. He had his passport. I think he had a little box with, he was going to keep a travel journal. And it really was a genuine passion of his. But, as the years went on, he did what he had to do in his life. And that passion kind of took a back seat. So what makes me laugh when I think about transforming your brand is at one point in the movie, he wants to have an online dating profile, but he doesn't have anything to put in it. And the representative from the dating website is saying to him, have you been anywhere? Have you done anything? Because he was coming up with a blank slate and didn't have anything to put in his dating profile. Well, of course, in the spirit of Hollywood, within a few days, he'd been chased by a shark. He'd been to Iceland, jumped out of a helicopter, climbed the Himalayas. Of course, within a matter of days, he had a spectacular profile. But the point of the story is, all the things that he did were in pursuit of something important to him. He didn't change who he was. And I'm not asking you to do that either. But again, the first step is to do a gap analysis. And it's helpful in this first step to get some feedback. So if, let's say, for example, and I will tell you, many of my coaching clients are trying to position themselves for that next step in their career. They want that promotion. Maybe the organization is going through a reorg and they want to position themselves for a role that has even greater responsibility, increased challenge, and to really be seen as somebody who can advance and take on an even bigger, more impactful role. So if that resonates with you, if this isn't happening for you and you're thinking, maybe I'm the best kept secret here and I don't know why this isn't happening, you absolutely, as part of your first step, get some feedback. Now, maybe you've done this already, but if you're not quite sure why the opportunities you're looking for, why they're not coming your way, you got to ask some questions, whether it's a colleague, a peer, another senior leader, your boss. It's good to say, what would I need to do to position myself for that? What advice do you have for me? In asking that question or those questions, that can reveal some insight into, well, we would have given you that opportunity. And let me tell you a quick story. So I know that in an organization I was a part of, there were probably a handful of leaders I knew who would have loved to have been transferred to another country, to one of our global offices. They would have viewed it as an exciting opportunity, really build out their resume, but just personally exciting and interesting and challenging. Yet, they were not seen as people who would have taken that risk. And they weren't seen as that flexible, nimble, adaptable, ready to pack their bags and head out, or even have any interest in being approached for an opportunity like that. So chances are that's part of the reason they weren't even asked or tapped or even considered. Okay. So your personal brand doesn't mean we're going to change fundamentally who you are. It's you may have a desire, an interest, a passion, but others may not see it or know it. So again, it helps to look at what you think is the gap between where you are today and where you want to be and get feedback. Now, when I say get feedback, again, this could be as simple as asking some folks for some feedback. Now, what I do is I go a step further with my coaching clients and we actually do a 360 personal branding survey, and I guide my clients on sending it out. It's a link. It only takes people like 10, 15 minutes at the most to fill it out. But what my clients get back for data is extremely rich. It's invaluable feedback on what others most appreciate about them. It's what others most appreciate about them, the qualities, the top 10 attributes, and it also helps them see how people view them in their leadership competencies and some other areas. So I won't go too deep on that, but it is an anonymous survey. And so sometimes if it's a structured process, you will get back richer and more valuable data than simply saying to someone, hey, I want to really get this new role. And, what do you think about why that's not happening for me? Or what do you think I should change? Or why do you think I'm not being considered? So anyway, it's sometimes much easier to get confidential, anonymous feedback that's very structured with somebody being prompted with specific questions, because the casual conversation, may not go deep enough. It'll depend on how you ask the question and the relationship, but that's key to your step one. Don't go off thinking you need to do a makeover when maybe you're going to get some feedback that will surprise you and maybe delight you, and there won't be such a big shift that you need to make. So again, step one, look at where you are today and where you think you need to be before you make a change. Now, when I talk about personal branding, I have an entire program that will help guide you on that. But if you're looking for a couple of quick steps that you can take on your own, I invite you to go to my website for a free resource. You go to donnasirianni.com, go to the resource tab, and look for the Personal Branding Framework. It's a free PDF download. And in that guide, I walk you through the major steps that you can take to defining your personal brand. So that's a great resource. And if we were coaching one-on-one, we'd certainly go much deeper than that, but that will get you started. Okay. So now let's talk about step two. You absolutely need to focus your attention and take action on the things that are directly related to this goal that you have in mind. Let me give you an example. And actually, this is an example from my own history that I took some very dramatic steps. I had a passion for international travel and working with teams that were spread out and other cultures. I was working in a large company, a financial services company. I was in the tech organization. This was many years ago. And I was a little bit frustrated because every time I inquired about were there ever any opportunities to work in one of our global offices, the answer was always, oh, that's really difficult. It won't happen. There's too many other people in line for those. Really hard to get. It can take years to ever get, we don't really do it that often. So I was a little bit discouraged thinking if I stayed with my current company, then chances are that wasn't going to happen. So I spoke to recruiters and I said, this is what I'm looking for. What advice do you have for me? And they said, no, it really doesn't happen. People don't hire with that in mind. You have to already be with the company for many years before they'll consider a transfer. So again, I was pretty discouraged. Now, I took matters into my own hands and I saved my money over a period of time. I took my own sabbatical. When I say sabbatical, I intentionally saved up my money so that I could go live in Europe. I traveled extensively through Europe and spent 6 weeks in countries like, Egypt, Morocco, Kenya. But anyway, I was based in France. And I did this on my own because I saved my money and I did this. It was kind of risky. I should say very risky. But I did it because I thought it's not going to happen without me taking a bold action. Now, for you, you may not want to or be in a position to take such a big, bold action. But here's what happened for me. I took that sabbatical, and when I came back and was looking for a new job, and I interviewed and got a job, and one of the reasons they hired me was because I had this international experience where I personally had been collaborating and living in an environment where I was interacting with people of different cultures. I lived in another country. I actually lived in a couple of countries. So it helped me stand out as unique against all the other candidates they were considering. So it actually worked. Now, in that job, just doing a fast forward, you say, well, it's kind of a big, risky, bold move, but here's how it paid off. I not only got the job, and I immediately began international travel for that company, working with teams in other regions. And within 2 years, I was given responsibility for teams in Europe and Asia. And within maybe a year or two after that, I was actually relocated to Singapore. And the next job I had after that, the CEO of the next company that I work for wanted me to travel and spend time in Sweden and Russia. So from my point of view, that big, bold action was very authentic because it was a passion that I had, and it played out for several years. It absolutely paid dividends in my career. Now, I'm not suggesting, again, that you quit your job and, and move to another country, but I needed to make a big shift in how I was seen, because then subsequently, so many of these opportunities came about because people now saw me as someone who worked very well as a global leader. And it wouldn't have happened had I not focused my attention, saw what the gap was between where I was and where I wanted to be, and then took action. So that's a big, bold move. Now, let me give you a different story that is something that wouldn't require, I'm just going to tell you a quick story of another client that I had where when she did her personal branding survey, got her feedback, it was all good because the purpose of the feedback is what do people most appreciate about you so that you can see how you are unique and the qualities about you that you can accentuate and leverage your strengths. But one thing that surprised her was she was seen as a doer, not a leader. Now, the actions that she could take after that were things that are subtle that you can do every day, where you're going to focus your attention and where you're going to take action. Okay, so in that situation, was she delegating enough? Did she delegate enough to her team? Did she focus her attention on the kinds of strategic issues that typically a leader is faced with? Or when she's in a meeting, does she appear to be taking it all on herself? In a meeting, you might say, oh, I'll do that. I'll solve that problem. I fix that for you. So when your language seems like you're taking it all on yourself, you appear to be a doer. As a leader, you might say, I will have my team look into this. I'll follow up with my team to see if they can fix your issue. You would use different language. But the first step is focus your attention and take action. Make sure you're actually doing the things. Because here's what's so important about focusing your attention and taking action. This needs to be authentic. Let's say, for example, you want to be seen as a really powerful speaker, an impactful speaker, where you speak to large audiences of clients or even in a small client meetings. But you are really never giving presentations. You're really never seen doing it. You don't actually give that many presentations. It's going to be hard for you to build up that reputation. So you've got to focus your attention and take action on those things, those specific areas of strength. And again, it needs to be something you're already good at because remember, you need to still be true to yourself and make sure these are things that are important to you, that you're already doing. By you taking action, now you are attracting that attention. People see you doing it. Now, why that's so important is that's what builds trust. If I'm a colleague of yours, or let's say I'm another senior leader, I need to add somebody to my team. I want someone who's, has that capability. If I don't have some evidence that you are good at this, your track record, what I've heard from other people, I've seen you in action, then that trust isn't going to be there because, again, it needs to be authentic. And I'm going to trust if you've got that credibility, you've got the experience, the track record, the expertise. There's some evidence that you really are good at it. So when I say transform your personal brand, again, we're not talking about you manufacturing, creating an image of something you're not. But what I see most often, pretty much consistently, is a client who will say, this really is a passion of mine. But what it turns out is it's kind of a secret. It's like people around them don't really see it. Okay. So take more action. Now, I'll just give you one other quick story. When I was living in New York City, I was living down in the financial district. And at the time, I had hired a business coach because I was already thinking ahead to creating my own business as a coach and consultant. But what I had not paid a lot of attention to is how do I get out there and start networking and meeting people and expanding the people I know beyond my company? I hadn't really put any attention on that. So my coach challenged me to take on a professional organization, to head it up and to start having events and speakers and so on and networking. And I took up the challenge. I agreed and I went off and I became the director of a chapter of a professional organization where I started having events, activities, and reaching out to high profile speakers, advertising the events and getting, groups of women together on professional topics and doing networking. I started going to events in the city whether they were technology or financial services related. So I started focusing my attention and taking action in an area where I needed to grow. And it makes me laugh that, maybe some number of, say, months or years later, people really saw me as this fabulous networker. And yet that is something I enjoyed, but I just really wasn't putting much attention on it. And you do have to focus your attention, take action, and strengthen those muscles if you want other people to see it. If it's once in a blue moon, once every couple of years you're doing something, that's not enough. For it to be credible and authentic, you need to show and demonstrate this is something that you're committed to and you're good at. It's part of who you are. And then they will take you more seriously. Then it starts to have more of an impact. Okay, so step 2, decide what you're going to focus your attention on. Where can you take action? What is it? What's the goal you have in mind? And what would you need to demonstrate more of in order to be top of mind to whatever it is, the promotion, the assignment, being relocated to another country, whatever it is, okay? And then the third step are all around communication and sharing. So I use the words best kept secret because that happens so often. And where I see this happen most often is my clients who, may be more introverted. I had a client recently say to me, well, I'm not interested in any self-promotion. I'm really not interested in any self-marketing. Okay, well, that's fine. But then if you want to be seen and tapped for these ideal opportunities that are precisely what you're looking for, and when I say looking for, it could be stay in the same role, but it's a project, an initiative, a client, an assignment, a problem to solve. If you want to be tapped, then you do need to share. You do need to be more visible. And you can do it in a way that's still comfortable for you. But let me give you some tips around that. So step 3 around communication. You can, on many scales, think about how you interact on a daily basis through email, in meetings, on conference calls, in private one-on-ones, having coffee with somebody, having lunch with somebody. When you work remotely, you may be doing a lot of video calls. So in every way that you communicate, be strategic about what you say and who you say it to, the when and the where. For example, let's say that, and I'll use my example of having opportunities to work internationally. You can slip that into the conversation. That's what I did every time I was meeting with, and in that situation, I seem to have we reorganized a lot. I had a lot of new bosses. So I would always make sure to say to the new boss, well, I have a passion for this, and if an opportunity comes up, I would love to be considered. And I made sure that all my colleagues, my bosses knew that I was taking these adventurous trips. I was working with people in our other offices, and I slipped that into the conversation. Things about myself, things I was doing, or if you know that you love solving complex problems, and there's a type of problem you like to solve and you want to be given more responsibility for those, slip it into the conversation. Say, oh, if you need help with that type of problem, that's a sweet spot of mine. I would love to help you. So you can say that, I would love to help you. If you have a situation where you have to give a client presentation and you're a little bit nervous, I'd be happy to be a sounding board for you because that's actually something that I have a lot of expertise. I would love to help you. So you can always say it in the spirit of helping someone else. So if that idea of self-promotion, self-marketing, it sounds really uncomfortable, do it in the spirit of serving your organization or helping somebody. Let's say you're in a meeting and there's an opportunity in that meeting to take action items. You're going through, say, discussing a big initiative and, everybody who's on the call is looking for people to raise their hand and say, okay, I'll take that item. I'll go work it. Be on the lookout for those things that represent opportunities for you to strengthen the muscles or demonstrate what it is you need to fill the gap, right? Because you want other people to have top of mind. So maybe in a particular, think to yourself, all right, in the coming week, Monday through Friday, let me look at my calendar. What are the opportunities coming up? Who am I going to be meeting with? What am I working on? Who's on these different calls? or who will I see face to face? And how could I take even 30 seconds or a minute to interject something and have that make an impression? Every day you have opportunities to plant seeds to influence what's top of mind about you. And trust me, this works. You plant the seeds and you will know it's working when people are approaching you for that very type of item that you want to attract. And you even hear them play back the words to you. Hey, Donna, I know that you love working with teams in other locations, and I really need help. I'm trying to plan a conference call. I'm not quite sure how to bridge the time zones and the locations and how to have a really effective call. Can I bounce some ideas off you? So you know it's working when people are coming to you for help, when you're starting to attract that which you have as your goal. Now, when it comes to communication, think about in your corporate environment, what are the tools that you use? What are the ways that people share? For example, if you have an internal collaboration tool or social media within your company, I have one company, we used Yammer, but there's lots of different platforms out there. If there's some sharing platform where other people share and you could easily share as well, take advantage of that. Hey, just want to share, me, my team, whatever it is, we solved this complex problem or we gave this presentation, want to share some highlights for you in case this is of help to you. So you can do it in the spirit of serving others, but share what you've done to shine a spotlight on your accomplishments, your expertise, what that progress looks like. And you're doing it in the spirit of helping them, but it also shows and reflects on you what you're good at. Okay. Now, taking it outside your company, LinkedIn is the perfect platform for sharing articles and resources. Now, again, this isn't going to be your own work product, but you can join in the conversation on LinkedIn to spotlight what your area of interest is. So within your industry or your profession, you can be sharing and commenting on specific topics that support your cause. Okay. So just to recap, when you want to transform your personal brand while still being true to yourself, step one is look at how you're seen today. Do that little bit of a gap analysis. What do you want versus what's happening, right? Get some feedback. So step one is all about taking a bit of an assessment of where you are and what you want. Step two is focusing your attention and taking action. You need to be living and breathing your brand to the extent that other people notice and it becomes top of mind. Step three is communicate and share what your thoughts, ideas, accomplishments with others through your verbal communication, through what you share online, through how you interact with others. Now, all of that combined will help you transform your brand. Now, your brand might not change overnight. Depends on how big that gap is. It could be that in the case of the client I was saying wants to be seen as a leader, not a doer, maybe in a matter of just some number of weeks through language and demonstrating the focus, it could be a matter of weeks before you start to see the shift. I know for me, I made some bold moves in my career a couple of times and, they were longer lead time. But for you, depending on how big the gap is, this is something that you could get started on today and you might see results fairly quickly, especially if you're raising your hand, volunteering, offering to help, showing what you're doing and how it aligns with your expertise, your strengths, your values, your passions. That can ignite fairly quickly depending on what's happening with your role and in your environment. So I really encourage you to think about how you can transform your own brand while still being true to yourself. Now, when I was on that panel back in Boston at LiveWorks, I really believe that you can change your brand. But what I'm not asking you to do is if you've got something you love to do and you're really good at it, that strength, leverage it because that is where you're going to have your greatest impact. So I am not suggesting you're going to become somebody else and you're going to really completely change what you like working on, what you're good at, because that actually is not being true to yourself. So I want to be really, really clear. When I say transform your brand, it's transforming how others see you, what's top of mind about you. I still want you to play to your strengths, what you're good at, your values, your passions, your style, and really allow yourself to shine by making sure you're not the best kept secret. So hopefully these tips were helpful to you. I also would mention that I do have a program. You can find it if you go to myownsuccesscompass.com. I go a lot deeper in working with clients on actually helping them not only discover what their brand is today, but exactly these steps of how do you then figure out where to focus your attention, the actions you can take, and how to communicate so that you can leverage your brand to achieve your goals. So with that, again, I hope this was helpful for you and gave you some food for thought. I thank you for listening and I wish you the best of luck.